Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. All right.
That's for us or the crowd here?
For everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to do interactive right now, but later on you can't talk. So, all right. I want to welcome you to our town council meeting tonight. We'll go ahead and call it to order. Happy New Year to all of you. It's good to see my colleagues back for a new year. We accomplished a lot in 2024, and let's do the same in 2025. What I would like to do now, if you're able and willing, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you so much. Before we move on with business tonight, I do want us to take the time and recognize those who are suffering right now, those who are facing hardships, devastation around the country. Let us not forget about our friends and neighbors, fellow Americans in Western North Carolina, New Orleans, and also most recent Los Angeles. We also want to bless our first responders who are out there taking care of business, trying to do their best to preserve life and property. I would like to ask Reverend Dr. Sequoia Dawson from St. Mary AME Church to come up and provide an invocation tonight.
Let us pray. Almighty God, to whom all hearts are open, to whom all desires known, and from whom no secrets are hid. We invite your presence here in this place. We lift up Mayor Gilbert and the Apex City Council. Let our 2025 agenda be in line with your agenda, with your will and with your way. We pray for Apex at large and the nations of the world. We lift up these United States and all governing officials. We pray for California, all impacted by the fires and the first responders. God, help us to not only be hearers of thy word, but doers as we serve all people. Help us to love now. Help us to leave foolishness, and help us to live ready for your return. It's in Jesus' name that we do pray. Amen, amen, and amen.
Thank you so much, Reverend Dr. Sequoia Dawson. Appreciate you being here tonight. We're moving now to the consent agenda. All consent agenda items are considered routine to be enacted by one motion with the adoption of the consent agenda and without discussion. If a council member requests discussion of an item, the item may be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. And tonight, consent 8, I do want to point out that we're moving that to, we're going to discuss that more in depth on February 18th in a work session. Thank you, Manager Vosberg, for getting that done. So with that, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Motion to approve with the modification.
All right, motion Killingsworth.
Second.
Second, Mayor Pro Tem. No modification.
Okay, so we're not removing it.
We're not removing it. We're just making a note that the discussion of that item will be at a work session on February 18th.
Okay.
Just want to make that known to all who are watching. All right?
Can we clarify a little bit? So a policy discussion will happen then. The
Yes.
money is now.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. This
Okay.
is the contract, so we'll have policy discussion on implementation at that work session.
Okay.
Okay.
All clear? Go with that motion still? Okay. Second, Mayor Pro Tem, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? All right, motion carries unanimously. We move on now to presentations, and tonight we have the first presentation will be a proclamation for Martin Luther King Jr. Commemoration Weekend 2025. So if you would join me to present the proclamation down front. All right, we're excited about what's going to take place this coming weekend. We have a proclamation, and it will be kicked off tonight by Mayor Pro Tem Gray.
the pleasure to be the first to kick off our proclamation reading for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day 2025. Whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. dedicated his life to the relentless pursuit of justice, equality, and nonviolent social change, serving as a beacon of hope and a tireless advocate for civil rights and human dignity for all. And
whereas Dr. King's legacy of compassion, courage, and unwavering conviction continues to guide our collective efforts to build a society where diversity, equity, and inclusion are fundamental principles upheld in every aspect of our community. And
whereas the observance of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day provides us with an opportunity to reflect on the progress that has been achieved, acknowledge the challenges that remain, and reaffirm our shared responsibility to honor Dr. King's legacy through intended action, service, and dedication to justice and equality. And
whereas the town of Apex, in collaboration with the MLK Cultural Advisory Group, is proud to honor Dr. King's life and legacy through a series of community events that celebrate his commitment to unity, education, and this year's theme, the King Era, Nonviolence Then and Now. And
whereas the community is encouraged to attend and participate in these events, which include a Black Authors exhibit at the Haley Cultural Center, a Unity March, and the MLK National Day of Service. Details on these events and more can be found on the Special Events and Festivals page on the town website.
Now, therefore, I, Jacques K. Gilbert, Mayor of Apex, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim Monday, January 20th, 2025, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the town of Apex, and encourage residents to reflect on Dr. King's message of justice, compassion, and equality as we enter into this new year. Signed on the 14th day of January 2025. And to receive the proclamation tonight will be Tayon Dancy and Larry Kopix. If you would please come up. Stand right here, take a quick picture as I present this to you. Would you mind sharing? Sure.
I'll just make a quick few notes for the weekend. We are excited. I do want to identify who the organizations are that have been working with us all along. This is just the 4th year for MLK in Apex. Before we started this, nothing was happening to commemorate him. And so I'm excited to have been the community organizer to propose it to the town council. I'm excited that there was a unanimous vote. But we did not do this by ourselves. I want to recognize Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, who is represented here tonight. And they are the Phi Lambda chapter. They cover this service area. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. himself was a man of Alpha Phi Alpha. I want to also recognize the Omega Psi Phi fraternity, the Xi Mu Mu chapter. He has not quite made it in yet, but he has been with us, or that chapter has been with us since the very beginning. And the historic Apex First Baptist Church as well has been with us since the beginning, and they are located right down Salem Street. That's where we start our march, and then we end here at the Senior Center. The very first year, COVID happened. And guess what? When things happened when Dr. King was living, he did not stop. He kept going. And so we pivoted and hosted a virtual march down Salem Street. And so again, thank you to all of the participants. Thank you to the town council. I want to leave you with a few notes because I know that's what King would do if he were still here and living. When he had a captive audience, he took advantage of that. And so while we're focusing on violence this year, or non-violence this year, one of the other things I want to make sure that we talk about here is his support for fair housing. The Fair Housing Act was something that was passed shortly after his death, but he focused on that as a part of his life's work. And while we have made progress here in Apex and in other areas of the United States of these Americas, there is still much progress to be done. Fair housing is not about poverty. Fair housing is about equity. Fair housing is about making locations available to all who would desire to live. That even includes my own children who now are in college and may desire to come back and live here in Apex. And I want them to be able to find a location to live here in Apex. So again, we've made strides, but I believe if King were here today, he would say, but it is not enough. We must keep pushing for fair economics. We must keep pushing for fair housing. We must keep pushing for equity. His dream was a dream of unity for everyone. And so now my call out is to you. Since the beginning of this, my heart's desire has been for the community to show up, just like you show up for the 4th of July, just like you show up for these activities where it's so packed down here in downtown. Friday night is a Black Authors event. The students here in Apex schools are being highlighted that night for an oratorical contest. Come out and support them at the Holly Cultural Center. Saturday is the MLK March. We'll start at the Apex First Baptist Church. It's just a short march here down to the Senior Center, where we will have coffee and some breakfast for you, as well as a keynote speaker. Come out and support that event and tell your neighbor to come too. Sunday is Social Justice Sunday at Apex First Baptist Church. You can join virtually or live in person. And then Monday is a favorite, I think, of our community because we do love to serve in Apex. It is a day of service that's hosted at the community center. We'll have Brown Bag Ministry. It's perfect for your little young kids to come and for families to serve together. Make it a point to show unity in Apex this weekend for MLK. Thank you, and thank you, Town Council, for all that you've done to support this.
Thank you so much for those words. We'll move now to Proclamation Human Trafficking Prevention Month. And kicking us off tonight will be Councilman Zigerman.
This is the proclamation, the Human Trafficking Prevention Month 2025. Whereas human trafficking is a recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, or obtaining of a person through the use of force, fraud, or coercion for the purpose of forced labor or sexual servitude, and
whereas during fiscal year 2024, agencies funded by the North Carolina Department of Administration's Council for Women and Youth Involvement reported 767 human trafficking survivors, and
whereas victims and survivors of human trafficking suffer tremendous abuses which create lifelong challenges requiring physical and psychological recovery, and
whereas addressing human trafficking requires collaboration between survivor leaders, governments, nonprofit organizations, law enforcement, healthcare providers, faith organizations, and local communities, and
whereas the town of Apex affirms the need for continued support and awareness of efforts to end human trafficking and commits to supporting efforts both local and statewide to end these horrific injustices.
Now, therefore, I, Jacques K. Gilbert, Mayor of Apex, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim the month of January 2025 Human Trafficking Prevention Month in the town of Apex, and encourage residents to educate themselves further on human trafficking prevention and volunteer with community organizations who work tirelessly to help remove human trafficking from our society. Signed on this 14th day of January 2025. And we have many organizations tonight here to receive the proclamation. So we'll start with SHIELD NC, of course. Nikki Miller, Michelle Stewart, Aaron Bircher, Leslie Lockhart. If you would, please come up. All right. I'm gonna have y'all to stay here. I got more names to present here. We also have SHIP Outreach, Anissa McNair, Pastor Christopher Jones, and Aaron Sneed and Sons. If you would, please come up. Oh, I got them. Oh, yeah, these two, yeah, of course. Lafayette Treywick, and of course, some guy named True Pettigrew. If you would, please come up. All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Thank you for being here. All right, let's have Ship and Ship. Pastor Jones, if you would come here. Shield. Shall we go up top? Yeah, I think we'll move to the back. Yeah. I'm gonna stand in front. Ladies first.
Hi there. So as you heard, January is Human Trafficking Prevention Month. So the idea is to spread awareness about human trafficking. I'm Nikki Miller. I'm with Shield, North Carolina. I'm going to take about 60 seconds to spread a little awareness. So we do a lot of training, and without fail, there's always somebody in our training that thinks human trafficking is abduction and kidnapping. That does happen, but it's very rare. Most of the time, people are trafficked by someone they've come to know and love and trust. Sometimes love, mostly know and trust. And so, 40% of trafficked individuals are trafficked by their family members. So it looks a little different than what a lot of people think. And if we're expecting it to look one way and we don't know, we're gonna miss it. At least about 96% of the time, we're gonna miss it. So education is very important. Every month, we hold a virtual, we make it really easy. I say, you can sit and take our education in your pajamas. It's 1 hour. We've condensed it down to 1 hour, just the basics. And of course, you can learn more if you want, but it's every month. And I would encourage you to go to shieldnc.org and sign up for that and be educated, because it is going to take all of us looking out for each other. Before I go, how many people were woken about 11:30 last night by an alert on your phone? Yes, that's all I'm hearing about today. That was a human trafficking case. There was also one in Wake Forest. It is happening here. So know what it looks like, and let's look out for each other. Thanks.
Good afternoon. I'm Pastor Chris Jones of SHIP Community Outreach. We do many things in Wake County area, food, we do youth, but one of the biggest things that we do now is our trafficking. We actually, in April, closed on a trafficking center where we actually rescue women that have been trafficked, men that have been trafficked, and we do try to help with children that have been trafficked. We're more so boots on the ground. We're actually out there working along with Mike Easley's office in the federal government and some of the efforts that they're doing. We're going around speaking with them, just trying to bring awareness to it. We want to bring awareness to it before it hits our front door. We want to know about it, know what's going on, and how to protect ourselves from it. And so we want to step in and help our communities, and we just want to give a big thanks, big shout out to Apex for stepping up, doing this proclamation along with us, standing to bring awareness. I want to thank the mayor, and I want to thank this council. Come on, y'all, put your hands together for them, for taking that step and standing up and bringing this awareness to it. Thank you all for coming out tonight.
right, thank you, council members, for taking part in shared reading of the proclamations. We'll move now to presentation 3, fiscal year annual comprehensive financial report presented tonight by Antoine Morrison, Finance Director, and April Adams, Assurance Director, with Cherry Beckart will present tonight.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Good to stand before you and present the 2024 audit. We have April Adams, who is the Assurance Director for Cherry Beckart, who are our, excuse me, I'm sorry, for our audit firm, our external auditing firm. And so you're going to receive the results of the annual audit for the fiscal year that ended June 30th, 2024. There's no action that's necessary. And so the agenda, we have the auditor communications. She'll review the audit process and results. I'll come back up and present you with some financial performance, some summary and other items, and then we'll open it up for any questions and discussion that you might have. And so on the first slide, we have here the Mason Street building. We moved into the Mason Street building, so whenever you see the audit report, that's our cover. It's going to be the Mason Street building. We issued that debt this year. The mayor joined us. I think Councilman Mahaffey joined us for the actual rating calls that we had. And so this is the cover that was done by our communications department. And also I would like to give ourselves kudos because we prepare our financial statements internally. And so that saves us around $15,000 to $20,000 on the audit just because we're doing that work internally. And so from that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Adams.
All right, good evening. I am excited to be here to report the results of the 2024 audit. This first slide is just kind of reiterating to you that we performed the audit under 2 separate auditing standards. The first is just the generally accepted auditing standards of the United States. So any type of entity, whether you're a government or a corporation or a nonprofit, you would be the audit would be performed under those standards. We also add in the government auditing standards as you're a government entity. That does require us to also issue 2 different opinions, one for each set of auditing standards. Both opinions issued were what we call unmodified opinions. So that is the best results that you can get. It's also known as a clean opinion. It is the highest level of assurance you can get from an external audit firm that your financial statements are free from material misstatements. So congratulations on that. We also conducted what we call a single audit. So this is the compliance testing that is done on all the federal and state grant dollars that the town administers throughout the year. We don't test every single program and grant dollars that are coming through. It's actually a prescribed methodology of how to decide which ones to test. In the current year, we did test only one program, and that was the POW bill. So we actually only issued an opinion over the state programs. So that opinion was also clean. We didn't report any findings related to that. So you can take away from that the town is administering all the grant dollars in accordance with all the compliance requirements. Our audit, this is a lot of words in this slide, but I'll explain what it is. This is just wording from our opinion. But what we're saying is that we actually don't opine on your internal controls, but we are required by those audit standards to look at all your internal controls and report any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. So what we are doing is looking at all your significant transaction cycles. So we're looking at things like, how does the town receive cash? How does the town disperse cash? How does the town make its payroll? What are all the activities that happen in order for that transaction or the payroll to be made? And then lastly, we look at how does all the information that is collected in your financial system throughout the year, how does that get out of that financial system and into the financial report itself, and make sure that there's lots of controls to make sure that those numbers that are in that system are the numbers in your report. So lots of controls to look at there. The types of deficiencies we would report to you would be a material weakness or a significant deficiency over those different cycles. We did not issue any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, but I will tell you that that doesn't mean that there might not be significant deficiencies that exist. We don't look at all the significant transaction cycles, only the ones we think that are pertinent to the financial statements themselves. So there may still be significant deficiencies that exist that we did not report. As far as corrected and uncorrected misstatements, another way to say this is audit adjustments. So from the time that Antoine and his team provide us that trial balance or general ledger, we are required to report to you any adjustments that we discover that have to be made or not trivial, which we call uncorrected, in order for your financial statements to be materially correct. We did not have any corrected or uncorrected misstatements. So that means that all those policies and procedures that all the employees have to follow is allowing you guys to properly capture and report all the financial statement numbers as they should be. There's quite a bit of required communications that, as a result of those standards, require us to communicate to you as the Board of Governance, because we are hired by you, so we're reporting to you. First would be that if there was any changes in accounting policies. We've had this report to you year after year because every year the GASB, who sets the accounting standards, is required new things to be reported in your financial statements. This is the first year in a long time that we haven't had that, so it's actually like a bye year for us, which was nice. So no new accounting policies, everything existed the same as it was. Those are all listed in your footnotes for your financial statements. That's what I thought. Other things to report to you would be about related party transactions. We're required to look for those as a part of our audit, inquire about them, and should there be significant related party transactions, we would need to actually look at the underlying accounting for that and the agreements to make sure that they're done at arm's length. We didn't have any related party transactions to look at as a part of our audit. Similarly, with significant unusual transactions, we would identify those and actually look at the accounting behind that. We didn't have any significant unusual transactions to look at. For significant estimates, I do want to let you know that there are a tremendous amount of estimates that exist within your financial statements. Those are based on management's knowledge and expertise and what they know about those items and to be reported. The biggest ones that I want to make sure you know are there are related to your retirement benefits for your employees, so the pension benefits as well as the health insurance, the OPEB plans. Those are numbers that are created by actuaries, but they're based on census data that Antoine and his team are pulling and giving to those actuaries to create the numbers with. Oh, and then lastly, financial statement disclosure. So we are required to let you know if there are any that are not consistent, neutral, or clear. We do feel like they're all the same from the prior year, just different numbers. But we also feel like you could actually pick them up and read them, and so there's nothing tricky about reading those footnote disclosures. All right, I am your external auditor, so that means I'm required to maintain a level of independence. We assess that before we even get started, whether Cherry Beckert and all the team members that conduct your audit are independent. So we assess that, and then we're actually required to continue and make sure that we maintain that independence should Cherry Beckert be hired to perform something else in addition to the audit. The only thing that we are doing in addition to the audit is creating the data collection form, so that's where we would report to the federal government the results of the federal single audit. And actually, we didn't even do a federal single audit, so we didn't even do this service. But we were hired to do it just in case. So we did maintain our independence. All right, this slide has a lot of different topics, but they are things that I'm required to cover with you. So we didn't encounter any difficulties with management during the audit, which also means we didn't have any disagreements with management during the audit. We did not consult any other auditors for any kind of specialty items that we didn't have any expertise on. We do obtain a management representation letter as a part of the audit. That is where we are keeping a list of things that Antoine and maybe even Randy represented to us during the audit that we are actually having to rely upon in order to issue our opinion. So we keep a list of all of that and then have them sign that before we issue our audit, but it is part of our audit evidence. We're not aware that management reached out to another accounting firm for any specialty items. I don't have any other findings or other issues that I need to report to you tonight that came about during the audit. We are not aware of any fraud or illegal acts that you're not already aware of that came about as a part of our audit. And then lastly, going concern. We're required to assess whether we think the town has the ability to be here a year from our report date. So I'm happy to report that you guys should all be here a year from now, still conducting business, which is great. All right, the other things over here on the right-hand side of the slide are talking about how our opinion lays out over all the information in that report. Our prime opinion is based on the basic financial statements. So those government-wide statements that you see up front and the major funds, as well as the footnotes. We also issue an opinion on the supplementary information, which we call an in relation to opinion. So that's all the fund statements that you see after the footnotes. What we're saying there is that we're going to extend our opinion over that information because it ties up to the front. So if you add up all that information in the back, it comes to the front. As far as a management discussion and analysis and the 10-year data that you see in there related to your pension and OPEB, we do not extend an opinion on that. We do look at it to make sure it doesn't contradict anything we are opining on, but it's management's information, not something that needs to be audited. And then lastly, there is an introductory section where there's a transmittal letter and a statistical section where that has 10 years of data of all the previous reports that have been issued. We don't extend opinion on that as well. All right, so the Local Government Commission has, they take the information from the annual report and come up with financial performance indicators of concern. And so one of those is that they're looking for the town and all the governments in North Carolina to submit an audit report within 4 months of the fiscal year end. And then they give an extra month of a grace period, which would be get you to December 1st. We issued our audit in December 23rd, so it was a little bit later than what the requirements are, and so that is one indicator of concern that it wasn't extended. Obviously, the town had some circumstances with the cyber attack that caused some the accounting department to not only be focused on the audit but on some other things, and so we just needed a little bit more time to get the audit done. So what's required from that is that you guys respond to them and let them know what the plans are in order to get your audit back on track, which I'm sure will be for next year. All right, last slide for me is just upcoming changes. So the Government Auditing or Government Accounting Standards Board has been issuing different standards that require new things to be added to the financial statements, as I mentioned before. There are 4 new ones to look out for in the coming years. For next year would be GASB 101, the compensated absences. This is where the town will be required not only to report vacation, which is currently reported, but also sick leave, but only sick leave that the town anticipates actually paying out in a payroll versus being used as a service credit for the retirement. So Antoine and his team will get out a crystal ball and come up with another estimate in your financial statements and figure out how much sick leave your employees will actually take versus keep for a service credit. That's the biggest one that I wanted to point out. The rest of these should be pretty minor adjustments to your financial statements in the future, but for next year, compensated absences. All right, so this is where I turn it over to Antoine.
So let's talk about some of our financial performance. So, and I have a typo, this should be page 143. So property tax, we were 12.5 billion in assessed valuation for the fiscal year ending 2024 compared to 11.8 billion of that prior year for 23. So that's going up. We increased our collections by 6.5 million year over year. And so we are at 99.8% of our levy was collected for the fiscal year, which is a very strong levy compared to other units our size. They were 99.1, and then statewide is 99.3. So we're beating both of those. So we have very strong property tax collection here in Wake County. Fund balance, the net position, you can see the 5-year trend, noting that general fund, all the general fund, electric fund, and water and sewer fund are all consolidated with their equivalent debt service fund that we set up this past fiscal year, the fiscal year in 2023. And so once we consolidate those, you see how we changed the fund balance. We increased fund balance in each of these except for the water and sewer fund, and that was a planned use of fund balance. We transferred money to 2 different capital projects, one $4 million for the meter upgrade project that we're working on, and then the other one was $1 million that went to the Western Transmission project. And so those were planned uses of fund balance, which we were already anticipating, and as we proceed, there will be more planned uses of fund balance, looking at the water and sewer, but we will discuss that at a later date. General fund, 8.7, electric fund is 5.3. I will note with electric fund, the reason we're seeing that significant increase is because we decided we were going to pay cash for one of the substations. And so as a part of our debt management strategy, we decided that it'd make more sense to issue debt. And so we're delaying that, and we're going to spread the cost of that project over the life of the project. So we'll be issuing debt. And so that saved us, I want to say $3 million. And then also year over year, there was an adjustment that was made in the fee schedule for the underground charges. And so year over year, that increased by 2.6 million. And so those are the biggest things that kind of weighed in when we're looking at that 5.3 increase in fund balance for the electric fund. And then you recall, this was the first year that we had the stormwater fund, so there's no history behind it. Stormwater was consolidated with water and sewer before this current the 24 fiscal year. And so that's why you'll see no history, but going forward, you will see that reported also. So we're talking a little bit about general fund. With the general fund, as you know, we have a 25% unassigned fund balance policy. And we ended this year, the 2024 fiscal year, at 29.1%. So we were above the policy. We would have been at 28 million. We ended up at 32 million of unassigned fund balance, which is a positive. For fiscal year 2024, that's 4.5 million, 4.6 million over our policy threshold. We have used 1.7 of that when we were balancing the budget, bringing forth the appropriation of fund balance in last year's adopted budget. And then to date, we've increased that by 340,000. So right around 2 million of that 4.6 has been accounted for. Debt positions. We issued we had three issuances last year. As I've already stated, we issued the 2/3 bonds for the Mason Street building, and then we had the transportation bonds for 24.5 million. That was the first tranche of the 2021 authorization that we have outstanding. And we also issued 1.8 million for rolling stock. So we purchased some vehicles and equipment. All of those are still strong interest rates, 3.7, 4.1, and 3.9. So while the economy is getting better, the rates, and because we have a AAA rating, we're still benefiting from that. The outstanding debt, we have 147 million outstanding debt. You can see the breakout between general government and the proprietary funds. So 101 million from general government, and then 46.4 proprietary, which includes the water and sewer as well as the electric. In total applicable to the limit, we have to make a calculation for by statute, and so the total amount applicable to the limit is 152 million, and that includes the unauthorized bonds that we have. So we issued 24.5 million. We have remaining another 24.5 to be issued at a future date. We are in compliance with our internal town policy for our debt. We have a policy that says that we can issue up to 2.5% of our assessed valuation, and you see the numbers there. The state by state statute, we will be allowed to issue up to 8% if needed, but the town has set the limit of 2.5, and we ended up at 1.2 for the fiscal year ending 2024. So within that policy, and then also we're meeting that 12% debt expenditures to the other governmental expenditures, and ending up at 8.9% for that policy. So we are remaining compliant with our internal policies, and as you know, We have our financial advisors reviewing those policies now, and they'll be making some suggestions on how we move forward with some of those other fiscal policies. Subsequent to the end of the fiscal year, the 2024 fiscal year, but before the audit report was issued on the 20th, we had another debt issuance of $1.9 million, and that was for police vehicles and a fire truck. We issued that debt to PNC Bank for 4 years, and we got a rate of 3.58%. So still obtaining very good rates on debt issuances. Plant debt. So in this fiscal year, we had planned to issue debt for the projects that we have listed there. We are looking at that, assessing it. We do not feel that that debt is going to be issued in this current fiscal year. It's going to creep over into the 2026 fiscal year. But those are the debt issuances that we anticipate having. We've talked about at some of our workshops, our work sessions, and we'll continue to talk about it in the board retreat coming up next month. So key takeaways, we have a very strong property tax collection. It's a benefit being here with Wake County. They do a great job as far as collecting taxes on our behalf. Strong sales tax, we're starting to see that kind of level out a little bit. We still have the organic growth, but as the federal government is bringing the inflation down, we're starting to see some of that inflationary effect of the sales tax kind of smooth out. And so we will continue to monitor that as we're moving forward. We have strong reserves, financial reserves across the funds in the town. In 2023, September 2023, before we issued the GO bonds, like I said, we had to have a meeting with both Moody's and S&P, which both of those firms reaffirmed our AAA status. So we have AAA status with both of those organizations, and that's the highest level that you can receive, and so we're very excited to have that. And we also have very strong unrestricted cash balances, and they're just listed there. Good news for staff, for finance staff, is that we got a memo, received a memo on the 20th of December, and the memo stated that statutorily we're required to have an audit every year. As April already mentioned, that's October 31st is when the audit is due. They have decided to make a change beginning with the next year's fiscal audit. So this year's fiscal year in 2025, this audit will be due in December, so December 31st. So that gives us an extra 2 months to get it done. And so we would gladly take that. And then they are making a couple other changes within that. It has not been officially updated in the statute yet. And this is just information that was shared with us via memo coming from the Department of State Treasury last month. And then I'll close by letting you know that we did receive the award for a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. So we're very excited to receive that for the fiscal year that ended 2023. We look forward to receiving that same accolade for the 2024 reporting. And a huge thanks to the town staff, but I'm going to give an extreme kudos to my staff, who has worked very diligently ensuring that we were not too late in submitting this audit and getting the audit done. With everything that's been going on for the past 6 or 7 months, it's been very, very busy. But considering that we are issuing this report and we completed the audit before this, we did last year, so we had it later last year. So they have really put in a lot of work to make sure that this got done. I have my Assistant Finance Director, Jessica Murphy, Rim, who is very much welcome. And thank you guys for getting me in that position, and she's kept this on track and ensured that we were getting the audit done in the most effective manner possible. So I will be quiet, and if you have any questions or you have anything that you'd like to discuss.
Morrison, thank you so much. Good work by you and staff, the whole team. April, it's always good to see you when there's good news, of course. So thank you for being here. Any questions for Mr. Morrison or April? Or comments?
Congratulations. I mean, that's a very clean report. So kudos to town staff for keeping our controls in place and delivering a clean audit. I did have one question on the change in the general fund balance, the 8.7 million. How much of that is burdened? It's basically purchase orders that are rolling over into the next fiscal year, or is any of that like an issue where the money was added to the fund, but we kind of know it's already spoken for, or is this basically free, unrestricted funds?
It's completely on the side. We have to do a calculation, and the calculation that we're required to do by the state, it takes out any money that's spoken for already in the general fund. And so this is what's remaining after that calculation has been performed.
Excellent, thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks again. We're moving on now to, let's set the meeting agenda. You have it in front of you. Are there any recommended changes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve as presented.
Motion to approve?
Motion Gant.
A second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Motion carries unanimously. We have a set agenda. We'll move now to a public forum. We look forward to hearing from the community, and we'll go ahead and start with the list. Remember your time, 3 minutes, and unless you have 4 more people. So we'll kick it off tonight with Phil Welch. If you would, please come up. And be sure to give us your full name and address as well. Mr. Clerk, if you could set it to 9 minutes. You have 4 people.
I do. I'll have them raise their hand momentarily.
Okay. All right.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, town manager, staff, public. My name is Phil Welch, and I love living at 1471 Big Leaf Loop in Apex. I'd like to recognize the other housing advocates joining me this evening. Please raise your hand if you're supporting affordable housing. Thank you. First, a bit of background. Town Council held a work session on December 17th to discuss changes to their advisory bodies. I couldn't attend, but I did watch the relevant portions of this session afterwards, and I was surprised to hear the recommendation to dissolve the Housing Advisory Board after only about 3 years of operation. The rationale given was that the HAB had accomplished a lot, the housing staff is now in place, and the work of the HAB is basically done. Whether or not these observations are true, Apex is still far from filling its gaps in affordable housing. In fact, I believe the shortage of affordable homes, especially for Apex's low to moderate income families, has grown worse in the last 4 years since the Affordable Housing Plan was passed. It was passed unanimously by the Town Council. I offered that perspective in my comments on this year's annual housing report. I thought it might be helpful to read those comments as a basis for my suggestions on how to advise the mayor, council, and staff on ways to begin filling Apex's deficit in affordable homes. Here are my comments. Apex continues to have a huge deficit of affordable homes for residents and essential workers of at least 1,400 households, and more likely closer to 3,000 or more when accounting for our neighbors paying more than 30% of their income for housing, plus our essential workers who would love to work and live here. 93% of Apex's residents commute out of town for work, so only 7% of people who work here are able to live here. Our essential workers, for example, healthcare support, construction workers, entry-level teachers, and police officers, earning less than 80% of area median income, cannot afford average rents here of $1,600. 770 low to moderate income renters and 650 low to moderate homeowners are severely cost burdened, paying 50% or more for housing and having little left over for other critical expenses such as food, health care, and transportation. So how are we doing at closing the gap? Here are some highlights from the attached annual report. Excuse me. At the end of fiscal year 23-24, DHIC was completing construction on and beginning to rent some of the 164 family affordable apartments in Stone Glen across the Apex Peakway from the Walmart shopping center. As of September 1st last year, there were still about 70 apartments available. Please spread the word to friends, family, and essential workers. During the fiscal year 23-24, as part of Apex Cares, Rebuilding Together the Triangle completed repairs on 6 homes owned and occupied by Apex residents at an average cost of just about $26,000 per home. In June, the Community Development and Neighborhood Connection staff and the Housing Advisory Board recommended, and the Town Council approved, major revisions to Apex Cares with the goal of rehabbing 10 homes in each of the 4 sub-programs during this fiscal year. 2 rezonings were approved in fiscal year 23-24 for market rate developments with 3 ownership homes at up to 135% of area median income for 30 years and 20 rental units at 80% of area median income for 10 years. These 23 units are out of a total of 970 housing units, or about 2.4% of the total. Much more is needed to realize the vision in our affordable housing plan. Quote, Apex welcomes people of diverse backgrounds, excuse me, and supports opportunities for affordable, safe, sanitary, and quality housing that meets the needs of people of all incomes, ages, and abilities. With that as background, I'd like to present some ideas I have for sharing information and proposals for closing Apex's gap of affordable homes. My objective is to find ways to better communicate the need for more housing choices to our council, town staff, especially planning and housing groups, and the public. I have a few ideas, including making the planning and development process more transparent and accountable, and opening better channels of communication among advocates, council members, and planning and housing staff members. I believe the first step would be to estimate Apex's deficits in affordable homes by different household incomes. Then we could ask the staff for specific annual objectives in filling these gaps. These will provide the means to measure Apex's progress towards filling these gaps. We'll also have the ability to hold our elected officials and staff accountable for closing the gaps. Otherwise, I feel that we'll be like any of our other Wake County municipalities, which ignore our neighbors and our neighbors who struggle to pay 30 to 50% or more of their income for housing and continue to live in fear of displacement and homelessness. We'll also continue to assume that it's acceptable for the vast majority, 93% or above, of the workers in Apex to commute from other towns and counties to serve us. I'm thinking that it may be time to use the public forum portions of council meetings to share information with our elected leaders, staff, and the public. Maybe we need to identify other Apex stakeholders who can explain the benefits of stable, stable affordable homes. For example, we could invite residents, such as a Habitat homeowner, to describe what a stable affordable home means to her as a single mother and special ed teacher in Apex. I'm already speaking with leaders from local social service agencies, such as the interim ED at Western Wake Crisis Ministry, to offer stories about people they've helped at the food pantry and with emergency assistance who are at risk of becoming unhoused. She could also provide statistics on how the demand for their services has been growing before, during, and after the pandemic. Perhaps I could line up talks by selected local faith community leaders on the calls they're getting from local families who are struggling to find and keep homes within their budgets. Maybe they could speak about the impacts of the lack of affordable homes on members of their congregations. However, I believe more advocacy is also needed. Advocates need to understand developers' proposals so they can support those that include a reasonable number of affordable homes at various price points and for affordable periods of 20 to 30 years or more. As advocates, we need to point out to staff and council members when developers need to do better with the proposals. I want Apex to continue to stand out in our county and our country as the peak of good living for all who aspire to live and work here. I invite council members, staff, and the public to talk to me about creative ways to achieve that vision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkes. Don Cozzolino.
Dawn Cozzolino, 3632 Bosco Road. Good evening, Town Council. Yesterday, 124 households in our New Hill community lost power for over 12 hours. The cause of the outage, and you're getting a handout on that, was reported by Duke Energy, was due to public vandalism. This could have been a serious threat. We have folks that are elderly, they have medical conditions, and when we don't have power, we have wells, there's no water, there's no heat, and we lose our refrigerators. Restoration of the power could have been even unknown at that point. And it reminds us all of the substation attack in Moore County back in 2022 that was never resolved. And since then, we haven't really heard anything, and it quietly went out of the news cycle. I asked for action tonight, an interaction between Apex, Holly Springs, and Wake County to address these safety concerns. The local governments need to figure out how to improve the safety for residents. And this is really important to protect the grid. This also relates, as I talk about often, to traffic crashes. And I bring that up because what's happening is we have the same roads, we have the same limited police resources, but a significant increase in the people growth from development. I'm not talking about babies being born. We have a high cost of living to go along with that, and things aren't getting better, they're getting worse. So I'd like to point out that I think we could be more proactive than reactive. And I continue to focus on traffic impact studies and those analyses for any developments, whether existing or proposed for zoning. Could we think about dedicating more Apex police resources to the areas that Apex has grown? And what I'm talking about is the areas of New Hill and Friendship Community, and we've asked for that in the past. I think the timing is right to ask that question again. And development, just remember, it's not on an island where each development has its own needs and it meets some volume limit. Actually, each development is compounded, and it's part of the whole transportation network and people network. Let's use common sense. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Cozzolino. Elizabeth Stitt.
Elizabeth Ray Stitt, 3113 Friendship Road, Mayor, Town Council. Good evening. So I have been around probably way too long. I've been in the area since 1991 and didn't really pay a lot of attention to the town's financials until the last few years. And I've sat through the annual presentation that the town staff gave earlier today. And I need to make a few comments because it's not meant to be negative, but we need to also be transparent. So in 2019, 2020, 2021, and as far as I know, any year before that, the financial audit was always turned in to the local government commission on time. So having sat through these meetings, I have known about this in the past. So I reached out to the local government commission in December, and they forwarded the documents to me. And so what you have in front of you is one of the financial indicators, and I'd only use page 6, and where it states that your report was late in 2022, in 2023, and now we're going to be late in 2024, it states, and I quote, "As stewards of the public resources, the governing body is responsible for ensuring that the audited financial statements are available to the public in a timely manner. External groups such as North Carolina General Assembly, federal and state agencies that provide funding, and other public associations need current financial information about your local government as well." You all received this in 2022, and you signed a letter, which a copy of the letter is in front of you, that you understood the importance of the financials being submitted in time. So we missed it in 2022, and you got the notice. And then 2023 happened, and we missed the deadline again, and you received the same statement. Those of us who've been watching and having conversations, we're concerned. This is Government 101, that you get your financials in on time. And I've read the letters about high staff turnover. Why are we having staff turnover? You know, what is it that you as a council need to provide the town staff? Is it more money? Is it more guidance? I don't know what it is, but it's embarrassing that we can't get our financials in on time. Now, I understand the consequence may not be large, but from a reputational perspective, I think it's important that this is the last year that we're late, because we were never late before. So I ask you to please have the conversations among yourself to figure out what you can do to help staff get the reports in on time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stitt. Mary Miskimen.
Mary Miskimen, 3177 Ratama Run, New Hill, 27562. Good evening. Happy New Year to the council and staff. So last month, I addressed the council regarding the ongoing utility bill issue, and I'm back tonight just to follow up. So far, the more than 1,800 people who signed my petition have requested more transparency and accountability, specifically more frequent updates to the webpage and a council agenda item addressing the status of utility billing, along with any information regarding the cyber investigation that you may have. It's now after the holidays, mid-January. It appears the most recent updates to the webpage were made in early December. I don't see anything on the council's agenda for tonight to address the cyber attack and billing issue either. I know of several people who did reach out to me directly to report that they continue to have issues with their December bills. Additionally, I see that the e-permit portal was having some issues today. It appears from the alert that was sent out that there was a software issue. So at the most basic, we are simply asking for the following, please: a public hearing to give the public the opportunity to ask questions until the town is fully recovered, in each town council meeting as a separate agenda item to ensure that town staff provides a specific update on the recovery plan and the progress made, and just an update to the town's website on a weekly basis, please. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you so much. Hannah Daniel.
Start. You don't want to give them that first?
I'm going to give it to him.
Okay. Hi, guys. I'm going to address the 3 months, the allegation that was over here in the city council. But I have one request. Make 2025 about the city council. Don't let any of those things coming into here. I'm going to address what is anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism, it's involved in unfairly single out Israel, deny Jewish history, like was over here last time with Jesus Christ, and have an allegation of genocide when there is no supporting for one. I don't believe that I need to come over here to a room full of Christians and tell you that Yeshua Bar Yosef, Jesus Christ, was Jewish from Judea. He was born Jewish, and here's the thing, unlike Muslims or Christians, where you have like so many ethnicities within you, Jews are ethno-religion. We have like Chinese. We have the Jewish religion, we have the Jewish faith, we have the Jewish people, we have the Jewish language, Hebrew. Translation for Hebrew to English, it's meaning the other side of the river, the West Bank, Judea and Samaria. If Jesus was over here today, he was only being able to speak to me in Hebrew. No need to say that Jesus was born 135 years before the land ever been Syria, Palestina, by a Roman emperor, in order to stick it to the Jews that keep on revolting against him because they want to release themselves from the occupation of the Roman Empire. Moreover, you all heard about the heartbreaking story of the 16 years old that being arrested by the IDF. So I was searching that. It's easy to search it in Hebrew. This is Hussein Abu Blial. As you can see over here, his parents and teachers stripped him with explosive bomb and sent him to a barricade to Israel in order to explode. Tell me who is the bad guy over here, the IDF that stripped him off of this bomb in 2004? Or was it the parents and the education system that taught him that we will get 72 virgins in heaven? 29 during the Intifada, 2002-2003, was successful to suicide bomb. It's come over here to the city council and come and give you these allegations. It's not the only one. Muhammad al-Wat, Abu Katish, and more children being sacrificed from their side in order to suicide bomb into Israel. But if they so care about about children, why don't they care about those family that been kidnapped and hostages in Gaza? You know what? If they don't care about Jews, why don't they care about the 2 Arabs, Israelis that been kidnapped and been found dead last week? Those allegations come here every week. I'm asking you to stop them. One last thing. The United States does not give money to Israel. They give a voucher to Israel. They buy merchandise and weapons from the United States that only been merchandise over here. They also do this for Ukraine and different countries. But they forgot somehow to say about this. Please make the city council about the city council again. I don't want to come back here. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all who came out to speak tonight at the public forum. We'll go ahead and close public forum out now and move to public hearings. So we'll start the first one, public hearing 1, 2045, land use map and transportation plan amendments, Western Big Branch. And Ms. Schaus, I know you have a request to continue this. Is that correct? Okay. Yes, I do.
So yes, council has been asked to continue this item to the next meeting on January 28th to go in unison with the parks plan update, okay, or to follow that up.
All right, any questions? Hearing none. Do we need to do a motion?
Motion to continue?
Motion to continue. Gant?
Second.
Second. Ziegler. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. We'll see you back.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, public hearing 2, rezoning case number 24, CZ 18, Sweetwater PUD Amendment. Mr. Joshua Killian. Thank you for being here tonight, sir.
Thank you. Happy New Year, everyone.
New Year.
Joshua Killian here to present rezoning case 24 CZ 18, Sweetwater PUD Amendment. This amendment is for the non-residential and mixed-use portion of the Sweetwater development, which is just south of US 64, just south of the intersection with Jinx along Richardson Road. The affected area of this rezoning includes all of the non-residential and mixed-use areas of Sweetwater, with the exception of the parcels owned by Harris Teeter. The current zoning of the property is planned unit development, conditional zoning. All properties to the south and east of this PUD are also, or of this area for rezoning, are also within the same planned unit development, conditional zoning. And to the east, we also have Smith Farm and the Harris Teeter site. Across US 64 to the north is neighborhood commercial and rural residential. And to the west, excuse me, I have my notes mixed up a little bit. To the west, we have the planning and development conditional zoning, which is the Harris Teeter Smith Farm here. To the east, we have light industrial, rural residential, and Tech Flex. and then to the north across US 64, the neighborhood commercial and rural residential. The proposed zoning would be to maintain the planned unit development conditional zoning, and the applicant is proposing to add the use bar, nightclub, wine bar, or tap room to the allowed uses. The 2045 land use map identifies the area as community mixed use activity center. The mixed use district includes high density residential, office employment, and commercial services, and the proposed use is consistent with that land use classification. The applicant conducted 2 neighborhood meetings for this rezoning on September 26th and November 19th, 2024, and those reports are in your agenda packet. This rezoning was exempt from meeting with the Environmental Advisory Board per the UDO, as rezoning does not impact buffers or anything else that was revised in rezoning case 23CZ20. No Wake County Public Schools letter of impact was received for this rezoning, as there is no increase in residential entitlement. The applicant is proposing to make the following changes to the PUD text. The first is adding the use, as stated before, bar, nightclub, wine bar, or tap room to only the east side of the non-residential mixed-use areas of the PUD, and to further amend the permitted uses table by showing separate columns for the non-residential east and non-residential west portions of the Sweetwater PUD. As you can see here in the PUD layout, we now have the labels for which side will be non-residential east and non-residential west, with Richardson Road as the dividing line. This rezoning was heard by the Planning Board at their December 9th, 2024 meeting and was unanimously recommended for approval with the conditions as offered by the applicant. And Planning recommends approval of rezoning case 24CZ18 as submitted by the applicant, as the proposed rezoning is reasonable in the public interest for allowing an increase in diversity of commercial uses on the site. And the applicant is here as well to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Killian before we hear from the applicant? Hearing none. Thank you. Mr. Waldo.
Hello, Mayor and Council. I'm Marvin Waldo, 3402 Sir Carlton Court, Raleigh. I will, every time I say that before the council, I want to remind you that my mother was born and raised in Apex and went from grade 1 through 11 when you graduated in the 11th grade at that time. And she loved Apex. She lived on a 60-some acre farm here, and miss her every day. But anyway, all we're trying to do is really, all we've tried to do the whole time is give the town what we felt we're here and that they wanted. And one little shortcoming that we ran into, this is like really about a dram and draft kind of a situation. And these things are very popular now. They're very upscale, and they're very, you know, we got so much food out there, it all blends in anyway pretty easily. But the if we look at Park West, if we look at Fenton, if we look at North Hills, this is already what they're doing anyway. It was just a quirk in the deal. Wasn't even aware that we couldn't do it. I had a tenant over there teed up and found out that we needed to go this route to open that door. And I will share with you at the same moment as you try to, with me, see what we're doing out there, that we'll be announcing on behalf of something the town wanted to, in probably 30 days, a major hotel, a luxury hotel. And that's just going to be the crown jewel for us out there. So we just really want to, you know, I'll remind you too, because you probably haven't gotten into the weeds that far on anything out at Sweetwater. There's about 70% of those tenants in that deal that are local and small tenants. That was by design on our part. We think that's running with a positive thing, and we think local tenants in something as beautiful as this property is that gives them a chance. And we believe that we crafted those deals for them in a way that it'll work on the anticipated volumes that we see coming. So all we're doing now is icing the cake. If you get a chance to go by there, the event lawn is done. The stage is getting done right now. The farmers market pavilions are done, where there'll be ice skating in between there. The sound systems are now, I'm in the weeds on that, how the sound system works and all the video boards. So hopefully you guys will be very, very happy with what we've done by late spring, early summer. So any questions, I'm glad to answer them for you, whatever, if I can.
Questions for Mr. Waldo?
I do have one. In terms of the exploitation, are these going to be individual parcels with individual owners, or is it going to be one ownership that over all the?
Oh no, this is just, we're not selling to anybody. This is all under the same landlord situation, and will be supervised accordingly. It would have to be that way with the residential up over top of it and all. We have to watch that for those people that live in there too.
So the entire area that we're talking about is under one single landowner?
Yes. Yes, sir. Yep.
Other questions?
I appreciate the question, though, because I know what you were asking, and it could be an issue if it weren't that way. So.
All right. No questions? All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Waldo.
And so I won't tell you that I'm a Millbrook boy, but anyway.
It's okay. As long as you bring in the hotel, I'm good. All right, we'll go ahead and open up a public hearing for comment on this one. No one signed up to speak tonight, so we'll close public hearing for comment, and it's back to council for possible motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Discussion now. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. I stand opposed to this rezoning, and to explain why, I need to talk about a bill passed last year out of the State House, the Senate Bill 382. And what Senate Bill 382 did was two things. It created a rule that in order to downzone any property, we need to get the signature of all impacted members, which we don't have to do today, and this affects stuff like transit corridors and other policies. You know, probably not the best thing, but something we can handle. The second thing it did is it redefined downzoning to be basically anything at all that we ever do. If we change a development regulation which impacts a property, that now counts as a downzoning, we have to get the signature of every property owner that's impacted. In effect, it means we can't do development regulations anymore because we're not going to get signatures from all the impacted property owners. I think that this law, in effect, has eviscerated local authority when it comes to land use in a way that we really need to think about how we do things going forward. Specifically for uses like this, everything you could possibly conceive that you want to change about, in this case, a bar use, we need to know ahead of time and have as part of the rezoning. We need to have these rezonings with a lot more conditions ahead if we're going to be under this new development regime where we can't make any more rules about developments. Everything's kind of frozen forever. We were elected by our residents with the expectation that we'd be able to make rules to address uses in our town. If someone has, you know, for concern about, you know, I don't know, setbacks or being too close to residential use or lighting or there's all sorts of stuff it triggers. Literally, you know, it could be literally anything. That analysis hasn't been done yet. It's all very new. I'd like to see, I'm not opposed to ever rezoning anything, upzoning again, but I think we need to consider more what restrictions we want to put on there because that's our last chance. And I'll say this as well. I'm not going to look favorably on any rezoning, which includes a laundry list of 40, 50 uses that we've done before. I think under 382, that's really not tenable. So I think we have more homework to do on this one. I think the state laws put us in a bad place, and we have to think hard about how we operate going forward. Thanks.
All right. Anyone else?
So with that question for Joshua, are there any conditions around the bar and nightclub use that are in the zoning? Because we're, as I understand it, we're just asked to approve additional use, but does the additional use come with any restrictions? In other words, for example, sound levels after 10 p.m. or certain closure times or anything of that kind?
So this would, all uses in our UDO, most of them have supplemental standards listed in 4.4 of the UDO, and so, or 4.5. So there are supplemental standards. I don't believe there are any that apply specifically to the PUD zoning district for this use. Things like time of operation and noise levels, that's a town code thing, not a zoning ordinance, so I couldn't answer that question, but there are supplemental standards that would have to be followed per whatever's in the supplemental standard. I didn't review that before this.
East of Richardson. So the location was part of the zoning. It's only the east side of that development.
Right.
That's one thing.
That's one thing.
Yeah.
And so, question for Councilmember Haffey. Local ordinances like sound regulations and such, if we sharpen those, would that trigger a nonconformity according to 382?
I would defer to Lori and our staff.
Do we have an answer to that?
I think it remains to be seen the impact that 382 is going to have.
And I think that's kind of a theme here. And I think we need to pump the brakes and think more about not only this one, but all future rezonings in the light of 382 and where we're going to stand. And I think what that's going to look like is tighter rezoning requests and more conditions and smaller lists of uses where we've really thought through the impact to the residents around there, because we won't have an opportunity to address it in the future.
It's going to be a bigger burden on both the town and development as well. So, to get all the necessary signatures.
That's a strict reading of that law that I personally don't share, and I haven't heard our legal opine on how strict that reading is that you're espousing. Personally, I read the thing too, and it just didn't. What you're saying didn't comport with what I think is going to happen.
Could you clarify which part?
The downzoning being that broad.
It specifically said that we cannot create a nonconformity. So if we change the light output from 3000 Kelvin to 2700 Kelvin, that is a change, and we create all sorts of nonconformity of all those properties that have 3000 Kelvin lights fixtures installed. And so that would trigger that nonconformity and therefore the signature requirement.
I think that's mostly related to uses of the land, not these kind of details.
And it specifically says development regulations.
It's very broad, encompasses a lot.
But I mean, I think your broader point is valid, that my reading of the law, there's multiple interpretations. I'll say the law is extremely poorly drafted. No one really knows what it means. It may come to court cases to figure out what it means. And I think for that reason, I looked it up, so let me read it. By creating any type of nonconformity on land, this is in the downzoning section, redefining what downzoning means. We know downzoning means removing uses, of course, but it also now means by creating any type of nonconformity on land, not in a residential zoning district, so we're only talking about commercial, including nonconforming use, nonconforming lot, nonconforming structure, nonconforming improvement, or nonconforming site element. So that, to me, supports what I was saying, that this is extremely broad. This could cover potentially any development regulation we pass. Any non-trivial development regulations probably going to create a nonconformity, or else we wouldn't need to pass it. We're usually doing it to address an issue, and necessarily that'll create a nonconformity. And in order to do that requires the signature of every single landowner impacted, which I would submit is absurd. It effectively means we can't pass those laws. So we're in a tough place. I think the authority of municipalities to handle land use and to handle rezonings, it's unclear if we have any. And we need to go very cautiously today, tomorrow, and through the rest of until we've, a more specific interpretation of this comes about. Maybe, the law is adjusted. Maybe we find ways to address the concerns in law, perhaps by zoning conditions, perhaps by agreements beforehand. I'm not sure what that looks like. But I also have not heard any analysis from our legal team or planning staff about the impact of it. But I do know that I'm not comfortable going forward with business as usual now that this law has been passed. Thank you.
I would say this, we have what we have in front of us tonight, and to move in the direction you want to go as far as making sure we're doing the right thing, I think for me, I would like to see a work session on that, to have those discussions and have more research. But tonight, we have something in front of us. Staff has made the recommendation. We need to make a decision if we're going to move forward or not with this project.
I'd like to offer a different motion, and I'd like to make a motion to continue until after we had that work session and we have more clarity as to what this law will do. so that we don't vote something up or down tonight that we come to regret.
What, here's my thing. Why wasn't this presented to staff prior to getting in here in a council meeting when all this was presented? Why wasn't this shared with them before? This
Staff knows my concerns about Senate Bill 382.
This causes a lot of issues for all involved. We have a motion and a second.
And there was a second motion, I guess. That
Procedurally, like there's a motion on the table. We need to table the existing motion before we can make another motion.
Okay.
So I mean, you can move to table this motion till a future date. I'm sure that would be. That would be effectively the same what you're doing is we could table the motion for now.
I want to hear more discussion first before we do that.
So wait, I guess it appears that the proposal from Councilmember Zigerman is to table it and then continue it. We have an outstanding motion on the table right now. Unless there's, who would have to move to table that?
Anyone can move to table.
You got a motion and a second, so you need to vote.
Yeah, I'm about to say, it's like we've already got a motion and a second, so we have to vote on this matter as it stands before us right now.
I mean, point of order.
You can go to another motion.
Point of order, like we can table the motion on that we have currently. We don't have to vote on this now. That's what a motion to table is to defer, lay it on the table to a future point in time until it's taken from the table.
Before we do that, I would like to hear more discussion.
So I think that a work session on this particular law will give us nothing because it hasn't been challenged yet. We have no details. As Councilmember Mahaffey stated, it's poorly written, so it can encompass everything, which, who knows? I don't know that it will be worth our time to do that because we have no idea what, other than us being concerned about doing any steps forward at all. So I would prefer to go ahead and vote tonight instead of tabling.
I would as well, and I've apologies to Lori. I always told her I wasn't going to step into the legal world. Understanding, I defer to her when it comes to the legal opinions and judgments that come from the council. But I will just say this: 382 is so new that challenges to help even clarify the entire scope are still bound to happen. The one thing that is very clear to me from that we get out of the statute is the General Assembly clearly did not take into account the will of those who are within the municipalities, and clearly didn't understand the impact this would have on the development community. Because now, if we go with the reading that Councilmember Mahaffey is going under, not only have you created essentially a by nature logjam, but it would grind everything to a halt. And I'm not sure if that was within the intent of the General Assembly, but I know that is something that would be the focus of litigation. And if there's going to be litigation, you need to have something done to litigate it. And to me, this seems like a proper vehicle should that move forward. So I feel like we should address it and wait for further clarification from the courts and the General Assembly as to exactly what they mean by these terms, whether it's downsizing or the exact scope of what they mean for development. That's just my take on it. I would prefer to move forward.
I would add this is definitionally upzoning, so it's not going to be a downzoning. So this is unrelated to that law right now, this particular action. Any reading of it.
Clarify. I'm not saying this is a downzoning. I'm saying it prevents future. I think it prevents future actions we may want to take because any future action would be then a downzoning based on the bar use property. And that is one which we have frequently in the past taken action to address concerns about. But you're correct. I wasn't, don't misinterpret what I'm saying. I'm not saying this is a downzoning.
All right, anyone else?
Just final comment. I like the proposed use. I'm a big fan of drive-in drafts. I'd love to see a hotel or a rooftop bar. But I am going to join Councilmember Mahaffey in a no vote. If anything, to send a message. The bill as passed severely limits our future abilities. And that might not be something that comes in play in the next 10 years or even 20 years. But what if down the line, we want to change this property to something else, right? And we're not going to, like, any rule that we pass is not automatically going to change a property. Like, for that, the property needs to be turned over, different, zoning needs to be applied for, and so forth. But it is a tool, one of the few that we have, to shape our future destiny of the town. If if 64 needs to turn into a transit corridor, and this would be an ideal place for a railway station. I'm just making stuff up right now, right? We would not be able to do that, change the zoning, and then wait for that land to become available to us to do what we need to do or what we want to do. And sometimes that's a process that takes many, many years, right? And so I am really concerned about what Senate Bill 382 does to us. Nothing against, the particular use that's being asked for here tonight, right? And, reading the room a little bit, I think we know where this vote is going to go, but I do think that we do need to get, more vocal outrage, not only from local legislators like myself and Councilmember Mahaffey, but also from the development community itself, that this is indeed going to create a severe issue around any non-residential development. That's an area that everybody's focused on, everybody in Wake County, right? We all want to attract more business to our towns, and Senate Bill 382 is going to make that increasingly difficult. And that message needs to get out. And so for that reason, I want to send a message.
I think we can send a message to our lobbyists, but
I was going to say, for what it's worth, when 382 was originally passed, myself, Randy, and Lori met, and so I've been working with the lobbyist on getting a report back for how that would impact us, and then we'll be working with staff, so that's coming to you all later this month. But just wanted to let you know that those conversations have been ongoing, and we have already initiated those reports.
Thank you. All right, so how do we do this? We have a motion to table. We have the original motion and a second to approve it.
We've done the original first, right?
Original. The motion to table wasn't seconded, so we don't have one. But if we were to second one, we would vote on that first. But there's no point in wasting time.
All right. Okay. So we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone, for discussion. All right. Moving now to public hearing 3.
So before I introduce our new planner to you, well, let me introduce Bruce first. So this is Bruce Venable. He's a new planner 2 in our department, and he is carrying a big load of the UDO amendments now, and so I have help, and I'm very thankful for that. So you're going to be seeing more of Bruce, and he's worked on the first amendment on your agenda, which I feel like now I need to address because SB 382. It's been a lot of fun since December. The amendments before you are not impacted by SB 382. We are allowed to proceed with these, adopt these. Fortunately, we had not made any changes 6 months prior to SB 382, so none of our standards are impacted that were previously adopted by that bill. Apex was very fortunate. And fortunately, we do have some UDO amendments going forward that don't qualify as a downzoning or cause nonconformities. And so we're in good shape with this. We've met with our legal staff to make sure we're clear on our direction as best as we can understand the bill as it was written and adopted. So just wanted to give that little preface before we begin with this.
Thank you. Welcome, Bruce.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's a pleasure to be before you all tonight. We have a couple amendments. I'll be going over the first one here, which will cover part of the exterior lighting standards in areas of the UDO. I believe some of you might remember that in January of 2024, you adopted new lighting standards in this section to kind of help purvey more of a dark night sky, kind of reduce light pollution as far as Apex is concerned. So before you today, after this has been in place for about a year, we have received some feedback from applicants and design professionals within the Apex jurisdiction. They've expressed there's some challenges complying with the way the code is at this time, specifically in industrial sites where they're trying to utilize loading docks or large outdoor storage areas, and just the movement itself of these large vehicles is creating some issues with the lighting standards that we have currently adopted. So to kind of address that and just kind of bring that to your attention today, I have a couple of slides here that are just kind of show kind of the issues that these developers and applicants are kind of running into here. This light aqua color here, the little circle here is kind of representing where the lighting fixture might be located. If you can see the little mouse, I'm just going to point out the top of this area. This is the proposed building. So this would be the back of the building where the loading bays would be. These are the docking station areas for the trucks. The green areas are showing where they would be in compliance with these current mounted fixtures on the building here. The yellow is showing where we're venturing closer and closer to non-compliance, which could become an issue and might be hard to regulate, which is given the way the site is situated. And then we have the red area, which would be the area that is out of compliance. And one issue that's coming up is even if you have lighting on both ends, these areas are so large, we're looking at about 125-foot length here from end to end, that we're creating these unsafe dark zones, and these applicants are worried that they're not going to be able to address these issues. So that is one reason. Again, another example here, I'll just highlight these large white rectangles here are actually two buildings. Their rears are facing each other here, and this is the loading area. Here, there's nowhere to put pole-mounted lighting. So we have building-mounted fixtures here and here, and again, it's a little harder to see on this slide, I apologize. There's some green where they're in compliance with what our current standards allow for built-in mounting fixtures. And then we have the approaching non-compliance area, and then this whole vast area is mostly out of compliance, just given what our current standards are. So part of the proposed amendments tonight is creating a new section in 8.63, which would allow for an alternative compliance. This isn't something brand new. There are other sections of the code where you allow the planning director or other department head to approve an alternative form of compliance. Specifically here, this would allow the planning director to approve an alternative forms to sections 8.63, your illumination standards, and 8.64, design requirements. Part of this would require that they have to, a licensed professional would have to provide and clearly demonstrate on a lighting plan submitted to the department that there is no other option, and that in order to have functionality and safety on the site, they have to veer or deviate from the standards that are in the UDO at the moment. We have 11 considerations here for you that the planning director shall consider. They include existing and proposed uses on the site, adjacent uses, existing and proposed topography, location configuration of buildings, existing proposed evergreen screening, housing shields, configurations, proximity to public right-of-ways, and then proximity to residentially zoned properties, and proximity to resource conservation areas and any other protected environmental areas. And finally, how consistent this is with the ordinance you guys have already adopted. You guys have already looked over all this stuff. You adopted this last year. There's stuff in here you like that you want to keep. That'll be on the planning director to establish that this alternative compliance still meets the intent of that ordinance. I do want to highlight that I know the council worked closely also with your environmental advisory board on this new ordinance. This was presented to them as well. They did provide a recommendation for this, and they did add item number 10, the proximity to resource conservation areas and all other state and federal designated environmental sensitive areas, and we included that in this as well. Additionally, we're proposing some other section, a slight tweak to another section in order to help kind of alleviate some of the problems that are with this current lighting standard. Here, we've updated some lighting here again. You can see in the bold and the underlined here that when they cannot reasonably meet the standards of the section, the applicant may submit the alternative form, and they might have to follow all the rules that we just listed under 8.6.3C. Additionally, under the section E, we're just kind of cleaning up some of the text here. We added pole-mounted fixtures are not allowed to exceed your already established standard of 15,000 lumens. Additionally, here we're cleaning up some text. We're changing the must to shall, as that has more of a legal imperative to it that this is mandatory. And then in number 2 here, there's a little bit more text. Again, it's another shall, a must that's changing to shall. But one thing I did want to highlight to you here is this is another part of the proposal tonight, is that typically your building mounted fixtures cannot exceed the 2,500 lumens. That's creating kind of the issue we saw in that second image where you had 2 buildings back to back, and those lights just weren't able to produce enough light to meet the ordinance itself. So in and only in industrial service or production uses that are within your text flex or your light industrial districts, we're proposing that these fixtures and these lamps may be able to be increased from the 2,500 lumens to 15,500 lumens to meet the standards that we already have in place for pole-mounted fixtures. And that's only when they're designated in areas on site plans that are shown to be loading docks or storage areas. Number 3, again, we're changing the must to shall just for consistency's sake there. And that's it for the first part of this amendment. If you have any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them for you today. And then after that, we can move on to the next amendment, and then you guys will take a vote at the end of that.
Questions? Yeah, could you speak to so this amendment seems to be making this more permissive. Could you speak to why staff thought it'd be appropriate or the best way forward would be to bring you to amendments versus the variance process or something else?
So as you may be aware, I don't know if either of you served on those boards, the variance process also has to show undue burden. That may not be always the case when we're having issues just meeting the lighting ordinance and stuff like that. It may be hard to prove that there's undue burden or circumstances where they would meet the requirement findings of fact in that type of setting, in a quasi-judicial setting. We were attempting to provide an administrative relief where we could still ensure that we're meeting the intent without basically someone coming to us saying, a lighting professional saying there's no way I can do this. It basically kills the project and things like that, when we were hoping to be able to find some kind of leeway or ground to find a path forward without forcing them to go down that quasi-judicial setting.
I just want to chime in and say I think industrial sites are some of the worst light polluters, and so I hope this loosening doesn't. I'm glad we have that set of language in the first one about the director. Still thinking about the intent of this, because I know these are mostly existing places, but they spill light everywhere, and it seems haphazard, and I don't like it. So I'm hopeful that we don't cause a problem here or allow a problem to crop up in these uses. And I hope that the director keeps that in mind when thinking about this amendment.
But other requirements, like all the light fixtures being downward facing, that all still applies, right? So even though we allow a higher light output, that light output is still directed down. There's no...
Yes, which is the most important thing.
Right.
Yes, and so, I mean, ideally, the professional lighting professional would provide us with a plan, and we'll be working with them in this process, and we say, what do you need in order to make this work while meeting the major intent of our ordinance here? That might be raising the lumens up a little bit. That might be increasing the height just slightly on their fixture itself. But staff would work with them to ensure that the minimum amount that needs to change from the ordinance and that they're meeting the intent of everything else is being accomplished, yeah. Ideally, it's not to allow a free-for-all for an applicant to come in and propose whatever they want. Yes, sir.
Understood. Could you go back to E?
Yes, sir.
You kind of glossed over this, but adding the word pole-mounted, why is that necessary? What's really the impact of that?
The original text was lamps for full cutoff fixture shall not exceed. We were worried that there was some confusion communicating with lighting professionals at this time about what that meant. They thought it wasn't clear enough. We wanted to be able to provide very clearly stated pole mounted.
So you think that the intent is the same here? It's just the terms we're using?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, the next two amendments are quite simple in comparison. So this next amendment is actually related to a change in state law to the definition of built upon area. So we are essentially compelled to make it. And so it's adding the language that artificial turf is allowed to be considered, we're adding the language that was added to state law that addresses built upon area. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about that.
Questions? Hearing none. Proceed. Thanks.
And then finally, whenever we made the updates to the temporary signs section, there were the table that indicates all of the permitted sign types and across different use types was not updated to match the text that we changed. And so this is essentially updating the table to match the standards in the text that was adopted. And so it's not a substantial change. It's just fixing a error. And the planning board recommended approval of all of these amendments at their meeting in December, and happy to answer any other last questions you may have.
All right, thank you so much, Amanda. Any other questions? All right, thank you. All right, we'll open up public hearing for comment for this item. No one signed up to speak. Public hearing is closed. Is there a motion?
I'll just make some comments and then a motion. I'll say again, coming back to 382, we have 3 amendments before us. One actually makes the development ordinance more permissive. We're providing administrative relief for lighting, so there's no issue there. Number 2 is just compliance with state law, and number 3 is technical correction. So very, very minor stuff overall. I have no issue with any of them. This is the type of stuff that we can do now. Like things that materially change property are now effectively not allowed. So with that being said, Mayor, I make a motion to approve.
All right.
I'll second that.
Motion by Haffey, second Killingsworth. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. All right, new business 1. Mr. Coleman.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight I'll be providing a brief overview on the proposed legislative priorities as offered by the North Carolina League of Municipalities Board of Directors. First, just to give some background on how we got to these 16. So over 450 submissions or suggestions were gathered from the state in the late fall from municipal officials all across the state. Suggestions came from 4 in-person meetings that were held across the state from the North Carolina Mayors Association, the North Carolina Black Elected Municipal Officials, the North Carolina Metro Mayors Coalition, which the mayor serves as the vice chair, and then the league also received 150 written submissions via an online form. The league's government affairs team grouped all of the submissions into several focus themes, and then the league's legislative policy committee, which Councilmember Haffey is a part of, considered how to phrase each goal statement and then discuss them more thoroughly. So for your awareness and everyone that's watching, the Legislative Policy Committee is comprised of 65 members, and the folks are either elected officials or appointed municipal officials, but they are all appointed by the league's president. Any league member was welcome to apply to be a member, which we are a league member, and then they solicited staff interest forms and collected those in May and June of last year. So again, for this type of discussion, the town council would have typically done this at a work session. However, the league has requested a response by this Friday, Thursday to designate a voting representative, and by Friday to submit responses. So that is why you see it before you tonight. And then you've also got a ballot with 16. Again, these are in no particular priority order. You'll see an asterisk by a few of the numbers, which the lobbyist feels that would be achievable in this next session, 25-26. When the council last did this in 2021, the council was virtual because of COVID, but essentially each elected official announced their top 10 goal statements, and then they were tallied up, and then those that had a majority moved forward. So I would like to ask Councilmember Haffey to weigh in, since he was a part of the development of some of these, and then I'm happy to answer any questions.
Sure. Thanks, Alan. I think you covered the process pretty well. You stole out of my thunder there. I was going to explain all that, but everything Alan said is what happened. I served on the committee, went through a public process, multiple in-person meetings across the state to solicit input to develop the league's goals. As Alan said, the staff then collated them, ranked them for us. Our policy committee meetings gave us a chance to adjust the staff rankings. They gave us a chance to add or remove items, knock some stuff up or down. A little bit of that happened. I'll say one thing that me and some other, I'd say, larger towns advocated for was a property tax relief program to expand the existing programs, which are actually quite limited. You know, we'd like to see a more extensive, you know, higher values, easier to qualify, that sort of stuff. I'll say the way the league kind of works, you'll see a small town versus large city kind of divide. And this is sort of one of the topics where it sort of came up is that program, it turns out, a lot of towns have concerns about because it could affect their input, their revenue streams more severely than us if you have a larger percentage of senior populations giving them a tax break. So it's actually a very tricky issue, which we debated and ultimately decided not to move forward with that as a goal. So what you see here are the final goals. I think you can identify also in some of the goals, some which apply more to a smaller municipality, some which are more applicable to a large municipality, some which are more applicable to us. You know, looking at the list, there's to me some pretty obvious ones which are great for us, some which don't apply to us. I personally will be supporting items which I think are more applicable to Apex, and I would advocate for you all to do the same. And later we'll ask for a motion, or I'll make a motion to designate myself as a voting member, and I'll go on the website later and I'll click in whatever we choose tonight. Cool. Thank you.
All right, what's the next step?
Whoever wants to go first. And again, you're identifying your top 10. It doesn't have to be in a prioritization order. It's just your top 10 up to 10. So if you only have 8, then you have 8.
Hey, remind me again, asterisks. What's
the asterisks are the ones that the lobbyists weighed in on that they felt like we would be effective in achieving.
Okay.
And I just want to clarify, effective in achieving may be different than important for Apex. It's just things that they think are possible. There's a lot of stuff which is aspirational.
Okay. And for members of the public that may be watching, the town of Apex will be considering our own legislative agenda, which is separate from this process. Some of these may feed into that, but that will be coming back at your retreat and then for adoption in the last meeting in February. So just keep in mind that these are the league's legislative goals and priorities, and they represent the entire state. So
I do have one other thing. Sorry. To add to Alan's comments earlier about how this process worked, one other guardrail that didn't come up is the goal. These goals were developed in a way which we were advised to not make a goal which was duplicative of the existing league sort of kind of themes or statements that we have. They have high-level policy goals like preserving municipal authority and stuff like that. They were said, there's no need to make a legislative goal. We're already going to do that stuff. So there's certain big level items to advocate for towns you don't have to put on here. So that's why it's not covered. So my apologies.
Yeah, I was just trying to think about how to make this more efficient. Why don't we just go one by one and say who wants to go with one, hands up. That way it's
sure.
Instead of, yeah.
So Councilmember Killingsworth is proposing that we go goal by goal. And if you have that goal, then just raise your hand and I'll tally them up.
That's a good call.
Okay?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. So goal 1, 3. Okay. Goal 2. Goal 3. Goal 4. Okay. Goal 5. Okay, goal 6. Goal 7. Okay. Goal 8. Okay. Goal 9. Okay. Goal 10. Goal 11. Okay. Goal 12. Goal 13. Okay. Goal 14. Goal 15. Goal 16. All right. Go back through each one of them. So goal 1 has 3. Goal 2 has 6. Goal 3 has 6. Goal 4 has 4. Goal 5 has 6. Goal 6 has 6. Goal 7 has 3. Goal 8 has 5. Goal 9 has 3. Goal 10 has 0. Goal 11 has 6. Goal 12 has 0. Goal 13 has 1. Goal 14 has 0. Goal 15 has 4. And goal 16 has 5. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4.
We have a tie.
Yep. So the 3, one of the 3. So we've got goal 1 that has 3.
Tiebreaker.
Goal 7 that has 3. And goal 9 that has 3. So 1, 7, and 9.
So we have to determine which one.
Mm-hmm.
Just one of those? Or
We need to drop one of them.
drop one?
We need to have 2 of them, right?
Yeah, we got drop 2.
You gotta pick a winner out of those 3.
Mm-hmm. Yep, because you got 12.
So
1,
that is
7, and 9?
one is
Expanding funding.
disaster funding.
2. You need to drop 2.
7 is rehab to purchase blighted properties, and 9 is reduce regulatory conflicts between state agencies, discourage voluntary consolidation, merger, and interconnection.
I think from Asheville, even though we didn't get hit by the hurricane, they would really want that one. And so I would oppose we keep 1 and drop 7 and 9 of those.
I would propose 7, that we keep that one. I mean, that's that to me, I think has a real impact on communities kind of like in transition like ours. And gives, I would love to have the flexibility to be able to say, all right, you know, this is a housing structure that needs a little bit of assistance. We can get in there to either make the repairs, make it look good, particularly if it's on a, you know, busy thoroughfare, if it's, you know, something that people will see as they're coming in, and it's an abandoned property that's just sitting there. You know, the regulatory scheme for a community to go in order to make those sort of changes in North Carolina is so, I think it's dated. I'd love to see more focus on that because I think that gives us the ability to get more beautification. Not to say that I don't think that the folks in Asheville don't need the assistance, and I think that's a worthy goal. But my understanding is that we'll be proposing, you know, R10, and then the guys at the league, the men and women at the league are going to say, we think that out of this 10, there's unanimity among these. So
all towns are doing the same thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So they'll be like, so they'll take the 10, and those 10 will ultimately get recognition. So, you know, we may. I mean, very well, we may find that one of our choices is basically move forward without our consent either way.
Yeah.
I
agree with you, Mayor Pro Tem.
I concur with Mayor Pro Tem as well, and it's also one marked with the one that the lobbyist feels that, right, that's asterisk.
7?
Yeah.
Okay. So
it's fine. We'll make it 4 for that one.
Okay.
It sounds like we're done then.
So we're dropping 1 and 9.
Yeah.
All right.
Is that what it sounds like?
Sure.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to reread the ones that we have. All right, so the mayor and town council are authorizing Councilmember Mahaffey to vote for goal number 2, vote for goal number 3, Vote for goal number 4. For goal number 5. Goal number 6. Goal number 7. Goal number 8. Goal number 11. Goal number 15. And goal number 16.
Yep.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing putting this together, Alan, and thank you, Terry, for going onto the computer and clicking.
Tough. All right, let's have updates by Town Manager Bossberg.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I have a few items. First, I want to hit on some of the capital projects that are going on. Try to highlight some of those each meeting. I want to start with the Saunders Lot project. As you know, that is underway. If you've been down there, it already looks very different than it used to. We have our program fully implemented. If you've looked at our website recently under the Saunders Parking Lot Project, there's a lot of good information there. The Beyond the Lot campaign and staff did a lot of good work on that. I've received feedback from several of you about the effectiveness of that campaign. Dimitri and I actually rode the employee shuttle today, and we went downtown and had lunch, and it worked out really well. So there's a lot of good information there, monitoring available parking that's out there. So I just wanted to highlight that project. The next project, if you've driven by where the Peakway extension is, there is a lot of activity, a noticeable change there, and you can actually start to see where that bridge will take place. You can see the earthwork that's been done, where it's going to tie in, and you can see the clearing and the widening that's starting to occur on Salem. So that project is well underway. So those are two of our major projects that are very impactful that are underway. The last one I want to mention is the water tower in Pleasant Park. And we're working through some additional information to get out to our residents, and we hope to break ground on that project by the end of February. So about a month and a half away on that project, but that'll be another significant undertaking for the town, but moving a lot of our infrastructure forward with those projects. Next, wanted to mention the third-party reviewer. They have been here. They were here yesterday. They were today, and I think they're here through tomorrow. They are currently on the second phase of their three-phase approach. That is going very well. They are kind of doing their thing, asking us for different data points, working in our system, getting familiar with all of the nuances of how we conducted billing during our cyber event, and they'll have some recommendations going forward, and also the analysis that's been requested for residential bills. So we look forward to that product, but it's going very well and it's underway. We're about halfway through their scope. The next thing I have is I wanted to mention yesterday, many of you heard about the gas leak that was on Olive Chapel. Just want to point out that was not due to town activity. It was a third-party vendor working for a utility provider. I believe they were putting some fiber and they were boring underneath the DOT right-of-way. Significant event for us. We had, I think it came out around 11 something yesterday morning. We had fire crews there for a little over 12 hours on site because the gas didn't get officially shut down until late last night. Then the road repairs went into the night. They were still working as of today. They had the road back opened up. I think it was maybe down to one lane and trying to mitigate traffic each way. But a significant event, and you'll take note that's the second gas event in the last couple weeks. I believe those were tied to the vendor. So Lori and I are talking about some options also with our fire chief on what we can look at there, because we've got to try and put a little bit of pressure on for those events that are having significant impact on our community. So more to come on that. And the last thing I have, it's been talked about, but I want to mention it one more time. All of the events that we have planned for MLK. Starting tomorrow, there's an MLK Junior Learning Lunch, and that's from 12 to 1 at the Senior Center in the Friendship Room. And then Authors Night on January 17th from 6:30 to 8:30. That will be at the Halley Cultural Arts Center. Also, as mentioned, the MLK Unity March and Breakfast, that's on the 18th from 8 to 10:30. It'll start at the Apex Baptist Church. And then, of course, the National Day of Service, which will be on Monday, January 20th from 9 to 10 a.m. and that will be at the John Brown Community Center. And also of note, Town Hall will be closed officially on that Monday as well. And I believe that is all that I have.
Right. Thank you so much. All right. Is there a motion to go into closed session for the two items listed on the agenda? Closed session 1 and 2. Motion, Zigerman.
Second.
Second. Again, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Motion carries unanimously. We move now into closed session.
People get excited. My kids will be cheering for it though.
We're back? All right, we're back live. All right, Mayor Pro Tem, you have a motion?
Yes, I have a motion for the approval of and motion for the action at BL 47, which would be an eminent domain action.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously.
Have a second motion, which would be BL 95, and that is a motion for eminent domain action.
Second. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you so much. Any other business? Hearing none. Meeting's adjourned.